10 famous people who died broke. 1. Joe Louis. Louis was known by his boxing name, the Brown Bomber. He's considered the finest heavyweight champion ever. Louis made $4.7 million from his boxing, but he gave money away to anyone who asked. He gave lavish gifts to his family, friends, and managers. Louis ended up with about $800,000, which he still gave away. After retirement, Louis worked as a greeter at a Vegas casino. He died $1 million in debt. 2. Bela Lugosi. Lugosi's most famous role was his curse. After Dracula, he was typecast as a movie monster. Lugosi was never offered any serious roles. He sought solace in drugs and alcohol. He died in 1956 with just $1,900 to his name. 3. Marvin Gay. The Prince of Soul had plenty of chart toppers, but most of Gay's royalties went toward his 2 failed marriages. He ran into trouble with the IRS and fled to Europe. A drug addiction wiped out his bank account. Marvin was shot and killed by his own father at 44. 4. Veronica Lake. Lake was a Hollywood femme fatale of the 1940s. Sullivan's Travels and I Married a Witch were blockbusters. Then she faded into obscurity. Her 1966 movie Footsteps in the Snow tanked. Lake spent her fortune on booze. A miscarriage and a string of failed marriages didn't help. Lake died penniless at 50 of acute hepatitis. 5. Mickey Rooney. In the late 1930s, Rooney was the highest paid actor in Hollywood, but in 1962, he had to file for bankruptcy. Rooney entrusted his finances to his stepson. The stepson spent it all on his own lavish lifestyle. Rooney died in 2014, owing medical bills and back taxes. His estate was valued at $18,000. 6. Billie Holiday. In 1947, Holiday was arrested for drug possession. She lost her performing license. This dealt a blow to her earnings. 12 years later, Holiday was rearrested. She was 44 and dying of liver disease. She was also taking heroin. Holiday died that same year with 70 cents to her name. 7. Omar Sharif. Sharif won 3 Golden Globes and a Caesar, but he couldn't stop drinking and gambling. He moved to Paris to be closer to the racetrack. He lost almost $1 million in one night playing roulette. He sold his home to settle his debts. In 2010, Sharif died penniless in an Egyptian hospital. 8. Anita Ekberg. The Swedish actress starred in Fellini's La Dolce Vita. She went on to have a successful acting career in the 1960s. Her roles, however, dried up in the 1970s. She lived in a rundown Italian villa, alone after a divorce. At 80, she fell and broke her hip after her Great Dane bumped into her. While she was in hospital, her villa was robbed. All her jewelry and furniture were stolen. Then the villa almost burned down. Ekberg never recovered any of the stolen possessions. She had no money for repairs. She died 3 years later in an Italian hospital. 9. Corey Haim. Haim and his co-star Corey Feldman were known as the 2 Coreys. They even had their own reality show. Like many child actors, Haim couldn't cope with his success. He filed for bankruptcy and got addicted to drugs. Haim died at 38 in his mother's home. She had to ask his fans for donations to fund his funeral. 10. Bobby Driscoll. Driscoll was one of Disney's first live-action child stars. He served as the animation model for Peter Pan. He also voiced Peter Pan in the 1953 film, but by 1968, he'd been forgotten. He was homeless and living in an abandoned building. Driscoll died of a drug overdose. He was buried as a John Doe in an unmarked grave. The body was later identified through fingerprints.